All right, we can get started. So, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our customer exclusive webinar, where we're going to explore how Banyan is transforming clinical communications and is shaping the future of workflow efficiency. My name is Olivia Pedezwa, and I oversee customer marketing at Mobile Heartbeat, and I'm also your moderator for today's event. Before we get started, I just have a few housekeeping items to go over. So everyone is in listen only mode. We're going to leave time for questions at the end of the webinar, but we do encourage you to enter any questions you have into the Q&A panel at the bottom throughout the presentation. But if we don't answer your question at the end, we'll follow up with you via email. And this webinar is also being recorded, and we're going to follow up after the event with a link to the replay. And at the end of this event, a survey will pop up, and we appreciate your time and welcome any feedback you have. And lastly, for any additional information like case studies, press releases, white papers, and more, please visit mobileheartbeat.com, and you can find those in our resource section of the website. Joining me today is Bill Reed, our Vice President of Product Management at Mobile Heartbeat. We're very excited about our new cloud-based platform, Banyan, and we're excited to share more information with you. More specifically, we're going to give an overview of the Banyan platform, show some live demos of Banyan's enhanced features, and dive into some of our future innovations that will drive further workflow efficiencies. And lastly, as I mentioned before, we're going to finish up with a short Q&A period at the end, so be sure to submit those questions throughout the webinar. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Bill to get us started.
Thanks, Olivia. Appreciate you and everybody's time today to join us here to hear an update about Banyan, and super excited about where we're at. At a high level from an agenda, we want to talk a little bit about Banyan, why Banyan, some of the driving factors I think that are in the industry around what led us here. I want to spend a lot of time today, maybe 10-15 minutes on showing where we're at, showing actually a live log into the platform, some of the functionality and the workflows, again, focusing back on how are we helping efficiencies and gaining that in a workflow in a clinical environment. But I do want to spend some time looking toward the future as well. It's not just about what we've built today to mirror and parrot what we've been doing in the MHCure platform for many, many years, but really looking to the future to say what additional efficiencies can we do, what workflows can we enhance, what integrations can we build to further that functionality, to further enhance the capabilities of what we're building in Banyan. And then time permitting at the end, I'm hoping to save 5, maybe as much as 10 minutes on the Q&A going forward. So at a super high level, let's talk about Banyan. I think everybody on this call knows about MHCure. We've been in market for many, many years. And one of the big challenges that we've had around MHCure is how fast can we get changes into the market? How fast can we build the changes in a development, go through our regression and QA, test all the integrations, and ultimately deliver that into the hands of our clinical staffs at each of the hospitals that Mobile Heartbeat's deployed at. So with Banyan, rather than just lifting and shifting Banyan, the Mobile Heartbeat base into the cloud, we started from the ground up. And what cloud native means from a development standpoint is that we are using services that are built for cloud, built in the cloud. In this case, we're using Microsoft Azure to build the messaging, to build the broadcasting, to understand presence, ensuring that our HL7 patient feeds to our EHRs are compliant and secure. The great news is we've been live since February of this year at a customer, and we've got several thousand users a month using Banyan. So we've learned a lot. We've seen some things for opportunity for enhancements, and we are focusing, of course, as always, cross-platform. We start with iOS. Our biggest install base is on the Apple iOS family, but we see more and more, we're hearing more and more about Android devices, whether they're secure devices like a Zebra or any of these other platforms. But we're also starting to see a growing population to say we have more users in the hospital that are ancillary staff that sit at a desk all day long. We don't want to give them a mobile device. What capabilities can you give them through a desktop experience or a web app experience in this space? So at a super high level, think about Banyan in terms of what we had in MHCure, but there's so many things that we had in the backlog that we wanted to add to Banyan, and we are adding to Banyan. not the least of which is a whole new user experience with new user screens and workflows. And you'll see a lot of that here in the next half hour or so. Taking a half a step back, we want to understand industry trends. Where we are now is so different than where we were 7 or 8 years ago, even 3 years ago. We understand that the need to communicate across the hospital and across the enterprise is vital to the success and the outcomes of our patient and their clinical outcomes. We need more integrations. We need to tie into more CMUs. We need to tie into more telemetry. We need to tie into more communication platforms that exist within the hospital. As we migrate to this cloud and as we migrate to new of these integrations, security is not smaller or less, it's more important. And what can we do to enhance that security and make it better as we go forward, but ensuring that there's less of a footprint in a customer data center to worry about for maintenance, which also reduces that threat surface that we may have had in the past from an exposure standpoint. So constantly scanning, constantly looking at the code, looking at our practices, looking at the environment for how roles and responsibilities are created in that space. But looking toward the future and that nod towards where the industry is moving is how can we leverage the artificial intelligence, that AI aspect, in more clinical workflows? How can we improve efficiencies and ensure that we're bringing that through one platform as you're looking at that vendor strategy that you've got going forward? And we'll talk a lot more about those bullets here in the next few minutes. At a high level, many of you may have seen this slide. It's a little bit updated from previous, but this describes the Banyan platform, kind of the high level architecture of what we've got. At the bottom, and working your way up, we're building Banyan out on cloud services. In this particular case, it's on top of Microsoft Azure Healthcare, and the Azure Communication Services is what ACS stands for. That's how we're building the collaboration platform that is Banyan. Now on the left-hand side here, this communication suite, this is the core of that clinical communications and collaboration that we do today. So voice with the directory, understanding who's on, what's their status, understanding what extension, are they a BYO user, a provider, are they transport, are they a clinical staff, are they the charge nurse? Alerts and alarms, how are we consuming that real time to ensure that if an alert comes in, we can respond to that quicker using that voice directory functionality to get to the right person faster. The core of what we do at Mobile Heartbeat is finding the right person, engaging with that person, and extending that within the enterprise. So taking that pattern forward, ensuring that what we're delivering in Banyan doesn't get changed, but we bring a new experience to that. Messaging is at the core of that. What's quite interesting, as we look at the data around Banyan and especially in MHQR, is that different facilities, different experiences, some people favor voice, others favor messaging. A lot of customers leverage the broadcast functionality and how they want to communicate. And it's really almost a cultural study of learning how people want to use the platform. So we're making sure that all of those capabilities are part and parcel to what we've got. Not the least of which, though, of course, is this patient and care team. Understanding from a patient-centric deliverable, who is the dynamic care team, who is the attending, who is the on-call, who's the care tech, who might be the charge nurse who's helping support that patient and their condition. That changes throughout the day, and we want to give a very up-to-date, real-time view of all of that information so that should an alert or alarm or a broadcast come in, we now know who to escalate to. These other two boxes underneath the communication suite are some of those new innovations that were coming with Banyan. The fact that we're built on Microsoft and with the Azure Cloud and Azure Communication Services allows us a deeper integration into the suite of Microsoft. What we found, I talked about this a few seconds ago, is that there's ancillary staff around the enterprise who we want to reach out to. They're not on a mobile device, but they sit in front of a desktop. And maybe they're already leveraging the Office suite today and they've got Microsoft Teams on there. Can we deploy Banyan to that user integrated with that Teams experience so that we don't have more touch points, more footprint on their desktop to engage with them around that patient care? Maybe it's part of the intake or the discharge. Maybe it's a social worker, maybe it's part of a hospice care. Any of those things are kind of where we want to extend more users that can collaborate within the communication suite. Channels is another concept that I'll touch at the end of this presentation, but it gives us a way to persist conversations, whether it be patient-centric, whether it's care-centric or clinical-centric, where a conversation can persist. Users can come and go and see the history related to that conversation. So maybe we have a patient that's Bill Reed in this case, And there's people that want to see some of the events that might have happened or some of the communications that have happened in the past. And by being a member of that channel, they can go back in time and see some of those. But there's some really interesting advanced workflows around patient channels that we're innovating on right now that I'll share a lot more around where we can take that and go into the future. The Banyan AI suite on the right-hand side is, again, a little bit more looking into the future. Operational insights. How many beds are available in the ICU? Real-time asset location. Where's the nearest blood pressure cart? Streamlining and workflows. Understanding and maybe digitizing some of the protocols that hospitals have to understand how can we streamline and accelerate some of the care that needs to be provided when a patient presents themselves perhaps at the emergency department. Moving up the stack a little bit further, you see voice control. We recognize that using your voice, your hands are busy, you're caring for a patient. Your voice is a very powerful tool that you can use to accelerate all of the functionality underneath this. So we want to double click and double down on what we can do using your voice. Recognizing noisy environments, understanding what workflow might need to be there, leveraging AI and chatbots to help us use that voice to accelerate those experiences going forward. All of that ties into this top row. Whether it's Apple, whether it's Android, whether it's on a desktop experience, we're building this so that it can be delivered and experienced in many different ways. And that's where this box in the middle and on the right kind of further enhance what we're building in Banyan. Everything is built by an API. That developer programming kit, that application programming interface, gives us the ability to take the services from Banyan, maybe it's a directory, maybe it's a patient view, and expose that to other opportunities within the enterprise to further extend the reach of what we're doing within Banyan. So again, super high level details of everything that's here in Banyan. But for this presentation, we want to dive a little bit deeper into what is Banyan today, why is it different, and then really quickly I'm going to get into a demo. Driving forces. This should go without saying. The healthcare industry is changing constantly. Our ability to innovate, our ability to deliver those capabilities to help accelerate that workflow so that we can get back to the patient bedside, back to patient care is paramount for what we're doing. So we want this platform to be a platform for the future, new innovations coming in. Customization. Banyan is built with a function that we're calling feature flags. It's an industry term that says, when I log in at Hospital 1, I see these sets of features. Maybe we don't have a alert and alarm module. So I should hide that and suppress that to give my view more tailored to the experience, more targeted to the experience that that clinician or that provider needs on a day-to-day basis. So we've spent a lot of time to ensure that both from a consumer standpoint as well as introducing new functionality standpoint, this customization, these feature flags help us deploy things with a much more tailored experience to ensure that the change management is adhered to as well as the experience is tailored to the needs of the individual. APIs, I talked about that on the previous slide. This is where our ability to take the Banyan services and extend them out or consume them into Banyan to further integrate within the ecosystem of the hospital, which ties into the whole core of everything, the communication, rethinking our platform and understanding where we can consume, where we can integrate, and how we tie that in. These last two really go into the back of the platform. How do we ensure Banyan has the most number of nines availability and the most uptime that we can, ensuring that an outage in the network connection to the cloud doesn't take down our communication platform. We've got a lot of work and a lot of thoughts in process right now in design around ensuring that that uptime is at the highest levels. And finally, I talked about this in the beginning about the MHCure to Banyan, roadmaps. How quickly can we get these changes out to you? Do we want to do them as much as every month, every quarter? Is it every 6 months, every 9 or 12 months? This is an ongoing conversation so that we can build these experiences using those feature flags to ensure that the upgrades are managed and more rapidly delivered as part of that innovation roadmap and where we're going. Super high level. The Banyan user experience, the Banyan user interfaces are very different. However, they should feel very familiar. All of us here are using an Android or an Apple phone in our personal lives, and the experiences should be familiar. How you're engaging, how you're reviewing things in your history, how you're creating something new, how you're looking at or searching for something that might be urgent or important. All of that user experience should feel familiar with a nudge and a nod toward the clinical workflows that you're leveraging. So with this, rather than showing screens, let me actually log into Banyan and show you what it looks like. And we've come a long way in a very short period of time. So as I change my view here, hopefully this comes up cleanly. Here we go. I want to show here, as I first log in, this is one of the new clinical workflows that we've created in Banyan. A request has come in from many of our customers that when I log in, I want a quick verification of my facilities and the units that I'm working in. And in this particular case, I'm logged in as a nurse, and you can see I'm associated with the facilities Boston General and the Mobile Heartbeat General. And in the Boston General, I'm currently assigned to the emergency room, and as well in the Mobile Heartbeat General, I'm in the cardiac ICU and the trauma. 99 times out of 100, maybe 9 out of 10 times, a user will say this looks good. But occasionally, maybe I'm somebody who floats between units day in and day out. Or maybe I know at the beginning of this shift, I'm going to be the charge for a specific unit. So what I'm going to show in this particular demo is I'm actually going to click into the edit button. And by doing that, I'm going to get brought to my profile screen. And in my profile screen, you're going to see a few things on this page. First, my status. You can see the Bill Reed, my status is green. I'm currently set to active. I have a custom status message that I'll come back to in a few seconds. But maybe I want to adjust the units that I'm working in the Mobile Heartbeat General. So I'm going to click the edit button there. And now this is all of the units that I now have permissions to. This was set up in an admin to say that Bill has the ability to work in any of these units, and therefore at the beginning of my shift, I will add myself to labor and delivery and med-surg. As soon as I save that, now my list has been updated, and you can see now the labor and delivery and med-surg have been added. But in this particular case, I know I'm going to be the charge for a specific unit. So as I open up the dynamic role list, these are my shift-based roles. These are the roles that I might be the escalation in this particular case, Mobile Heartbeat General, and I'm going to take the CCU charge nurse. And right now, from a security standpoint, this is saying, hey, this role is currently occupied by Jen. Are you sure you want to take that? When I hit confirm, I now have the role. And now Jen is going to get an alert to say, Bill has just taken this role for you. So we're ensuring that baton handoff, that communication handoff is happening when those transitions happen. So now when I go back to my user profile, you can see right underneath my edit assignment, I'm now the CCU charge nurse. So from this one screen, I have the ability to scroll up and down here and see other integrations and other components here. This gives me that ability to set up my day, set up my shift or mid-shift, simply by clicking on my profile avatar, going back in to make a change as needed. If I'm switching from the one department to another, one unit to another, I would do that right from this profile screen. The final thing that I want to show on this screen here is when I set my status to busy, I have the ability to put a busy timer. Maybe I'm doing med pulls and I know for the next hour I'm going to be unavailable. And what I can do is when I hit save in this particular case, I can now go in here and change my status message to med pulls for the next hour. And when I hit done, that now becomes part of the profile that I've got. So all of the information about my day, all the information about the shift, the unit assignment is handled right here on my profile screen. From there, let's go right into the crux of the communication platform that we've got here. In this case, what you're seeing across the top is text messages, all my recent messages, some unread messages here that I've got from Kristen, recent calls that I might have made, phone numbers, contact information that have come in. You'll see here, and I'll come back to this in a few minutes, alerts that might be waiting, nurse calls or otherwise escalations that might have come in from telemetry. And then finally, any broadcasts that have been read or unread would be here. For now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start in the workflow of texts, and I need to reach out to an individual. So I'm going to click the floating action button in the bottom left-hand side here. And in this particular case, I see my directory. Now, there are contacts that I use regularly, and I've set those up as favorites. And if I filter on that, I can see here that Rutwa is my admitting supervisor. And I'm going to click on Rutwa's name, and up comes my workflow here for a new text. Because she's the admitting supervisor, question related to, if I can type, please call. And that message has gone off to Rutwa. And what you'll see, it might be a little bit of an eye chart here on the presentation, is the status is sent with the timestamp. Once Rutwa has read it, it will show as read. And if Root was starts typing back, I would see that Root was typing so that I know I'm in an active conversation. That's the extra data that we need, that we're carrying over from MHCure to ensure that that same pattern, that same footprint that you've got here is associated. Now, if I go back to an existing text, I'm going to send a text here to Kristen, just responding here. And I want to send this as urgent. And by me sending this as urgent, you'll see from the user experience that we both color it in red as well as tag it with that urgent tag. And I can see right away Kristen has read it, and here's Kristen responding to me, and all of that information allows me to go through the workflow. So very, very powerful. 1 minute, she's becoming available, she's in a webinar, off we go. The next workflow that I want to show here is our directory. Across the bottom of the screen is simple navigation. Here's my recents, whether that's calls, alerts, or broadcasts, or maybe in the directory, I might need to reach out to another charge. So I'm going to go here to the search, and just by typing in charge, I can see all of the different charges that are in there. I can see Shell is currently assigned to the admin of the cardiac ICU, but his status is unavailable. Here's my status. Here's other people, Krishma. All of these roles currently are unassigned, so are offline, so nobody to reach out to in this particular case. But I also have the ability to search by unit or simply search by favorites. I can reach out to the center manager in this case. Jana, I can tell, might just be a desktop user, so now I only have the ability to send a text, not make a phone call. So the tool is dynamic enough to know both their presence as well as any information as far as contacting them. Now I'm going to go one step further here and actually click into Jana's name. And when I click on Jana's name, in this particular case, I can see a little bit more information about her. I can see that she's associated to the Boston General, and at the bottom of the screen, I can see what patients she's also been assigned to. So all of that information lets you kind of click through the tool at any different points to get to a faster view of an individual, a previous conversation, a quick escalation, etc. Back to my recent screen, I want to show an alert view. In this particular case, I've got a few alerts that are waiting for me. I'm working on my shift, and the reason the audio is not working for any of this is I've got it tethered to my laptop in the room, but if I was untethered, it would alert just the way you would hear it today in the facilities. So I'm going to look at this telemetry one that came in as urgent. I can accept this, or I can escalate this, or maybe launch to an outside integration. So in this particular case, I'm just going to accept this one. And maybe I want to go follow up with a specific patient. Maybe this alert came in for, in this case, Jonathan Blair. What I'm looking at now here is my patient view. And in the particular view that I'm looking at, this is filtered to patients that are assigned to me. So you can see that I've got a couple of different departments with a few patients assigned to me in different spots. And when I look at Jonathan Blair in this particular case, I see the specific details for Jonathan. I have his MRN, his visit number, date of birth. You can see that it's assigned to me. I have the ability to send a broadcast out to the care team. I have the ability, I'm not going to actually execute this, but when I click the phone call, it's going to ask me, do you want to make a phone call? I have the ability to therefore integrate to the pillow speaker within the room. The care team is really the focus that I wanted to share on this screen. So in this particular case, I mentioned earlier that this is my patient. And if I view more around this care team, I now see multiple roles that have been assigned to Jonathan. I can see that Marco is the cardiologist, he's consulting. I can see that Dan Power was the admitting, but he's currently offline. Other team members that are also associated with this show up on this screen. All of this information is extra metadata. If I want to see additional details, I can click in on the details screen to see that Jonathan's in here for a fractured tibula, mobile heartbeat, cardiac ICU, fibula to the cardiac ICU. Might be a little bit of a mismatch, but you get the demonstration. The final thing that I want to show is down here at the bottom of the patient detail screen. In Airstrip, in Epic, or Meditech, or any other simulators, we have the ability to do what's called a inter-app launch point, and this is what this external links looks like. So in the case of Jonathan, I can see all of his patient details, but maybe I want to check the waveforms for the monitoring that's going on. So I'm going to click here on Airstrip, and what I'm doing by clicking on Airstrip is I'm launching, and you'll see here it's actually Jonathan's view in Airstrip with that patient-specific, that patient integration, to ensure that now when I go to Airstrip, I don't have to go find Jonathan, but I know this was sent directly to Jonathan's view. So that deep integration with patient context, with patient-centric view is what with Banyan is going to continue. Now, if I go back to Banyan, I have a single click back here, I have the ability to launch perhaps Epic. And you can see down here, and there's more than one option. So if I want to launch, in this case, Epic Rover, that's going to launch Rover, giving me the ability. I don't have a login here to log in past the login screen, but that you can see how that integration again allows me to go back and forth. So as we're building Banyan out, that integration into the ecosystem, the acceleration or the shortening of that workflow that made you jump between 3 or 4 places is where we're focused. That integration point across the enterprise. If there's somebody in the directory that you need to reach out to, that you need to find, are they available? What's their specific status message? So in this particular case, I'm looking at Jana. I can see she's got a test custom status message. In the case of my user profile, I had said that I was going to be doing MedPull. All of that information comes right to your fingertips as fast as you can get to it, and it allows you that ability to engage with the right person. A couple of last things that I want to show you here before we get back to the slides is in the bottom right-hand corner. I clicked on this extremely fast earlier. This is our floating action button. This is our launch. This is something new that we want to create, something new workflow that we want to advance. When I click this, these are the choices that are, again, customized for my user that I might want to do a quick broadcast. I'm going to click that. Maybe I want to send out a tornado warning. And by sending that tornado warning out, that's going to get sent as an urgent to everybody within the unit, within the facility, to understand that there's something urgent that needs your attention. I also have the ability to do a group broadcast, where maybe I want to send something out to the transport staff. And as I look into there, I have the ability to do a custom status message, or I have this little paper clip, on the bottom right-hand corner here, that when I click that, I now have the ability to choose a specific patient. And when I click that patient and hit send, that context gets sent to the receiving group around that broadcast. So if I go back to my broadcast here, I have a patient view down the bottom here. Here we go. And in that broadcast, this is as if I received it from Jonathan. Jonathan has a bed number, 101A, and you can see that the code that was sent earlier, when I click that link, it brings me right back to the full patient detail and the full patient context within Banyan. So I'm jumping around a little bit here, but that's intentional, just to show that within Banyan, there are many avenues and many paths that you can get right back to the right information for the right reason. So now I'm back in Jonathan's screen. Maybe I need to reach out to Marco, and if I clicked on Marco's information, I can see what he's associated with. I can see that he's seeing patients until 2. So if he doesn't answer, that's probably why. And in this case, maybe I want to set Marco as a favorite because I know he's somebody I'm going to engage with often, so that when I go back into the directory and I search on my favorites, there's Marco now down at the bottom of the screen. It all ties together in those workflows, whether it's ad hoc communications where you're sending a broadcast, sending a one-on-one text, receiving an alert, or more patient-centric where you're looking at a patient view and you want to understand the care team or any of the telemetry that might be associated with that. So I went through a whole lot of detail rather quickly, but that was somewhat intentional, just to kind of give a super high-level overview of the progress that we've been making and really the functionality that mirrors and marries what we've been doing in MHCure for many, many years. So back to the slides. I want to talk about future innovations and where we're going next. One of the things that I mentioned in the beginning was this ability to integrate within Microsoft Teams, the ability to take Banyan and deliver that via a desktop experience that's embedded into the Microsoft Teams. We found that there's often staff within the facility, within the enterprise, that is living at that desktop. And if we can extend that Banyan communication platform to where they are at their desktops, we've shortened some of those care cycles. We've engaged more people within the enterprise. We've made the communication platform that much more powerful. So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to tab over to my Microsoft Teams experience. You'll see here I've got my Teams, my chats, anything that I've got. But on the left-hand side over here, I've got a icon that says Banyan. And when I click on Banyan here on the left-hand side, you'll see my login screen comes up, and I'm actually going to log in here. And when I log into Banyan, you'll see something that looks quite familiar. The same workflow that I had when I was on my mobile device. I'm just going to hit looks good. You can see the chat that I had with Kristen from a few minutes ago, the chat that I sent to Rutwa related to the question related to the bed. And all of that information carries, and I'm logged in simultaneously both to a mobile device and on the desktop at the same time. So now if I want to continue that, please let me know when webinar is complete. And I send that off to Kristen. I have that same workflow showing that Kristen has read it, and Kristen's going to be in the process of replying back to that as we go forward. So all of the functionality that we've got here marries and mirrors, and I can see alerts. I have a patient view, and this can be customized so that we either add or remove functionality for a desktop user moving forward. So really excited about that as an opportunity to extend the footprint of what we've got for Banyan in the Microsoft space and beyond. Another, I think, huge operational workflow efficiency gain is this, Banyan AI functionality. And in this particular demo, I'm going to click on the video here in a second. This is one of the chief complaints that we have related to equipment. On any given floor within any given unit, we know there's a lot of equipment that needs maintenance. And what often happens is rather than opening a ticket immediately, that equipment gets moved over into the corner, into a closet. And after a little short period of time, we've got 6 or 7 pieces of equipment that need attention. So what we're doing here is taking our Banyan platform and integrating it, in this case, to ServiceNow, the IT platform for ticket management. So now I've opened up a chat, and the chat says to me, what can I do to help you? And in this particular case, Nick, as the user, is saying, I've got a broken IV pump. So the platform in the background, the chat back in the background says, hey, would you like me to open a ticket? Nick engages that saying yes. Ticket's been created, and the view is going to switch quickly here to now the ServiceNow/IT help desk. They see all the information from Nick because it's populated with his role, his location, his unit, all of the information that they have, and they simply now start a two-way conversation saying, hey, can you attach an image for me? And the IT agent hits send, and when they hit send, going back into the view that Nick is seeing, Nick's going to get an alert saying, hey, can you please upload this ticket? Nick goes out to his camera file and to his library and goes and grabs the barcode from his photo library and attaches that as part of the workflow. Again, what you're seeing here is efficiency gains by exponential time saved, in that now this communication is happening natively within Banyan. Going back into the IT ticket, we're now seeing the image that Nick has uploaded, and now we have all the information. We know where it is, what it is, perhaps getting the right person up to the room to fix that much quicker than it would have been otherwise. That's just one example of where the chatbot, the API integrations that we built in Banyan are going to further enhance and accelerate workflows within the operational efficiency realm. Clicking through this. Voice control. I talked about this a little bit more in the beginning. Maybe you don't know who or what role you're looking for, and rather than searching the directory, you just want to say, hey, call Catherine Walker. The directory finds that there's a single Catherine Walker, enables your voice to open that call and engage with that person much faster than typing with 1 or 2 hands, because again, you're focused on patient care, and maybe your hands aren't free to do all of this work. There's another use case here where maybe you don't know it's Catherine that you're looking for, but you maybe want the ICU charge nurse. And you ask the chatbot, hey, call the ICU charge nurse. It looks up in the background that maybe it is Catherine Walker and makes that connection for you on the back end. Channels. Last couple of minutes here from a presentation standpoint. This is something that we see a huge opportunity. In this case, I'm looking at a patient view, and this is Rhonda Christensen. We've added a new segmented tab here on the left-hand screen showing both the general information and now channels information. From a channels information, I can see that there are different workflows or different clinical teams that are taking care of Rhonda. In this particular case, there's a patient skincare one and a patient discharge one that I want to focus on. For now, I'm going to focus on the patient discharge. We know there's steps that need to take place. We know there's an evaluation that needs to happen to determine from a disability, are they available to take care of themselves. We know that maybe there's transport that needs to be requested. We know that there's multiple steps in that protocol that need to happen. So what you're seeing first in the middle is all of the people collaborating around the different care for Rhonda. What do you think the patient needs post-discharge? She's weak and cannot dress herself. Let's get a physical therapy evaluation put in the order. I can get this done this afternoon. Well, over on the right, now we see the hospital workflow status. The discharge process has started. Now they're looking at post-discharge destinations, understanding if there's an ADL evaluation that needs to be done. And we can see the participants that are responsible for ensuring that workflow is handled. So again, this is a future innovation that we're working on now to extend the functionality of just a basic channel into more patient-centric, into more patient workflow-oriented, to ensure that tasks and protocols are being followed and can be monitored to understand. Maybe there's a question of how many patients are awaiting a discharge education before they go home. Another use case is more of a unit focus. In this particular case, I'm looking at an ER triage team, and the participants are dynamic roles. I've got a pod nurse, I've got a triage nurse, I've got a EMT that may or may not be involved in this group. By accepting those dynamic roles, they're now participating in this channel called ER patient triage, and regular communications about status, capacity, and other communications and coordinations can happen. So all of that gives you a center point or central focus point so that your workflows can be more tailored to the engagement that you've got. And as people come and go throughout the shift, maybe this gives you the ability to look back for 90 minutes or 2 or 3 hours to understand a patient who might be under your care that you're inheriting, that you got through a handoff, but you needed a little bit more insight and a little bit more information, and that history here persists. So said a whole lot, probably a lot faster. We have a little bit of caffeine that I've got here today, but super excited about what we're showing here for Banyan, and knowing that everybody on this call is an MHCure customer. We're encouraging everybody to reach out to your representatives here at Mobile Heartbeat to start the customized process and migration plan for the timing. Super excited that we've got people live, and we've got several more people live, scheduled to go live here in the next couple of months to further the both migration from MHCure as well as the adoption of Banyan, to continue to have our our eyes to the horizon and ears to the ground about what more can we do for you. What innovations can we help accelerate and enhance your workflows? But more importantly, what is it that we can do to help you on a day-to-day basis? So with that kind of wraps up the presentation, and definitely want to spend here. It looks like we've got about 8 or 9 minutes for questions, and very, very happy to open up the floor.
Great, thank you, Bill. So it's great to see Banyan in action. Thank you for all of that information and the live demos. As a reminder, if you have a question, please enter it into the Q&A panel in the bottom of your screen, or you can enter them in the chat as well. While we wait for any additional questions, we do have some questions that we've received so far. So the first one is, can I use all of my old hardware with Banyan? Do I need to purchase or upgrade any infrastructure?
Yes. Short answer about hardware. Of course, since Banyan is cloud-based, your server footprint gets migrated to a cloud footprint. If you're using voice gateway, those are still part of the Banyan architecture and our system. But I suspect the question is much more related to the devices. We follow from an Apple standpoint. iOS 18 just got released. I'm actually demoing Banyan here today on iOS 18, but our QA and regression teams behind the scenes are testing it as well. There's likely going to be something they'll find that I didn't find. So, as Apple deprecates some older versions, iPhone 8s, iPhone 10s, for example, are no longer supported as of iOS 17. Some of those devices will get will lose support. As always, we recommend the latest and greatest versions for the most functionality and bug fixes, but most of the hardware, most of the devices you've got today are, assuming that they're still within the last 2 or 3 years, will absolutely work with Banyan.
Great, thanks. The next question we have is, what happens if I lose connection to the internet?
That's a great question. One of the big things that we've been hearing from the MHCure to Banyan conversations is, I control my on-premises footprint with MHCure. I've got my network reliability. I've got hard wires between hospital facilities and data centers, and Banyan goes out to the cloud. What are we going to do about that? One of the things that we're working on now is local survivability or business continuity with Banyan. Yes, your directories and presence and all that information comes externally from the Azure footprint. Cloud resiliency is absolutely paramount in ensuring that we've got all of the connections and redundancy that's out there. One of the things that we're working on right now is, if you do lose your connection to the cloud, what services and functionality can we provide you? Directory with calling, maybe a footprint of the statuses of where things looked a half hour ago or 2 hours ago, to ensure that you don't lose your communications capabilities just because the cloud connection goes away. And we're having a lot of active conversations about varying levels of functionality, but we are absolutely focused right now on a directory with calling functionality to at the minimum ensure that you can make phone calls and ensure that people are able to continue in the event that you lose connections to the cloud.
Thank you. We just have two more questions here. So this one is, do you plan on continuing MH Cure?
Short answer is yes. We have two product offerings, excuse me, that we offer. MHCure, of course, for the on-premises. Most of our users are still on MHCure, and we're going to continue to support that. iOS 18, iOS 19, iOS 20. Banyan is our innovation focus. So as new functionality gets introduced, Banyan will be our focus. And as the opportunities to leverage and accelerate the integrations with Banyan exist, we will absolutely continue to go down that path. But MHCure is not going anywhere right now. We have a lot of experience there and a lot of customers that are really embracing it. And we want to work with customers around the migration someday, if they choose to. That's really the key message here.
Thank you. And then our last question is there a new pricing structure for Banyan? How much does it cost to transition?
Yeah, that's definitely a custom question for individual customers. Each customer has a different relationship with Mobile Heartbeat, and I would encourage them to reach out to their representative so that we can have that conversation with you from a pricing and approach. I mentioned earlier in the presentation about how some of our customers are calling in directory, others use alerts and alarms and patients. All of that will depend and vary the pricing structure for you going forward in Banyan. But the answer is, reach out to your Mobile Heartbeat representative, and we'd be happy to have that conversation.
Great, thank you. I think that's all for today's event. So I'd like to thank Bill for his time today, and thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us. We hope you found the information we delivered in this webinar to be informative. And if you'd like more information about Banyan or would like to discuss a migration plan for your organization, we encourage you to reach out to your Mobile Heartbeat representative, or you can also email us at connect@mobileheartbeat.com. And lastly, at the conclusion of this webinar, there's going to be a quick survey that pops up. We appreciate your time and welcome any feedback as we just strive to deliver valuable information for you. And thank you, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.